Hi, my name's Alicia, and I'm briefly going to talk about my audiovisual artwork that I created for our creative coding class. So, I've named it an array of emotions because it consists of two states that display words or text that are related to emotions, which I've placed in arrays. So, that's where the names come from. In terms of how a user can interact with the piece, I think I've made the instructions quite clear as I've left a note on the screen that says, click on the screen below to switch between the two states. And that's basically all a user has to do. They just have to click on the screen once for the first state to play, and to switch states they just have to click on the screen again. Next, I'll briefly talk about how the code runs and the technicality of the code. So during the process of coding this artwork, I was able to implement quite a few of the coding principles that we learned in our class, such as the use of if statements, for loops, arrays, as well as constructor classes. To allow the user to switch between the two states, I used a mouse click function. And in that function, I placed an if statement that said, if the state is positive, then play the positive sound and stop any other sounds from playing. Whereas if the state is negative, then stop the positive sound and play the negative sound. I also used an if statement in another section of my code, and that was related to the properties of the two states. So the if statement said, if the state was the positive state, then make sure the text is white, give it a certain font, and make the speed slower. Whereas when it's the negative state, make sure the text is red, give it a different font, and make sure it's faster. Aside from if statements, I also use a for loop in my code, and that was used to continuously produce the words that are displayed on the screen. I use quite a large number in my for loop, and that's why you'll be able to see that there's lots and lots of words flowing down the screen. Not only that, I also use a constructor class in my code, and that was to set the properties of the words that were falling. I used it to set the Y position, the X position, the speed, as well as the font. As I previously mentioned, I also use arrays in my code, and that was basically to contain all the words that I wanted to display on the screen. Lastly, I've enabled the words to fall at different speeds in the different states. And how I've done that is I've set the Y position of the word according to the speed. So in the red state, I set the speed higher. That's why the word falls down the y-axis at a faster speed compared to the white state where I've set the speed slower. So now I'll just run my code so that you can see it displayed. That's all. Thank you.